The Israeli public justification for the military activities and assault on the Gaza Strip has been to destroy Hamas. That is the only reason why these bombings have been taking place. However, this does not explain as to why Israeli forces have been advancing into Palestinian territory. It also does not explain as to why Israelis have expressed the intention to move Palestinians into the Sinai desert. And actually, they have tried to get this done, as will be shown in due course. The emergency government formed on October the 11th expressed their desires to wipe Hamas off the face of the earth. Since then, around 9,000 Palestinians have lost their lives. Many of them, in fact around 4,000 of them, being innocent young children. On the 22nd of September at the UN, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu brandished a map showing Israel as a singular state, i.e. showing Gaza and the West Bank as being under Israeli territory. The message was clear: there is no Palestinian state. The Nakba of 1948 saw around 800,000 Palestinians displaced from their homes, 500 or so villages ethnically cleansed, Israeli settlements constructed on Palestinian lands. The story since 1947 has seen Israeli encroachment on Palestinian land, restricting their movement, destroying their homes, and essentially squeezing the population. Following the events of October the 7th, there is evidence to suggest that Israelis chose to capitalize on this in an attempt to push the Gazans into the Sinai desert for good, continuing along the Israeli encroachment on Palestinian land and what was implicit in Benjamin Netanyahu's UN presentation. A leaked Israeli directive reportedly shows plans to deport 2.3 million Palestinians out of Gaza and into Egypt. This directive was supposedly endorsed by Israel's Ministry of Intelligence and under international law amounts to a war crime. Israel's Ministry of Intelligence deportation directive outlines the 4 stages. Number 1, a call on Palestinian civilians to vacate North Gaza and allow for land operations. Number 2, sequential land operations from North to South Gaza. Number 3, leaving routes open across Rafah. Number 4, establishing tent cities in northern Sinai and the construction of cities to resettle Palestinians in Egypt. Though the authenticity of this report may be disputed, the FT reported that Benjamin Netanyahu attempted to lobby the EU in accepting Palestinian refugees. This suggestion stalled as EU diplomats took seriously Sisi's refusal to accept Palestinian refugees into Egypt. In conjunction with this expulsion plan proposed by the Israeli government, pro-Palestinian groups were alarmed by a White House budget request which seemed to endorse Palestinian displacement. The letter can be found on the White House website. The letter from the 20th of October listed as a reason for requesting funding the potential needs of Gazans fleeing to neighboring countries. There was massive public outcry from pro-Palestinian activists who saw this as not only US's complicity in a purported genocide, but also now the expulsion of the Palestinian people. Following a call with the King of Jordan, the White House emphasized their opposition to forcefully expelling the Palestinians outside of Gaza. The sentiment of Palestinian expulsion, though, still exists. Giora Eiland, ex-head of the Israeli National Security Council, in an article last month proposed as a solution to the situation in Gaza, making life unlivable and forcing the Gazans to leave. Israel needs to create a humanitarian crisis in Gaza, compelling tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands to seek refuge in Egypt or the Gulf. As a result, Gaza will become a place where no human being can exist. And I say this as a means rather than an end. I say this because there is no other option for ensuring the security of the State of Israel. We are fighting an existential war. Today, largely as a result of public pressure, American Secretary of State Antony Blinken is due to land in Tel Aviv and is expected to emphasize that the Palestinians must not be forcibly removed from Gaza, despite what Israeli policymakers are pushing for. People often seem to wonder why the Gazans don't just simply leave. People should be reminded that an-Nakba is actually construed as Palestinians leaving voluntarily. In light of Israeli policy of 75 years and her policymakers and the intentions that they have been expressing, perhaps the reason why Palestinians don't leave Gaza is because they know that if they were to leave, they would never be able to return.